Alrighty, my front wheel's a little twisted. Gonna use an old trick to fix it here. It should get me going. You'll notice I didn't use my left arm to hold the handlebars there because that's the shoulder I crashed on a couple weeks ago, and this is actually my first ride back since that crash. Ah! And that's why the handlebars weren't pointing straight. Apparently wasn't concerned enough about them to get them dialed back in after hitting the ground. That was just one of those odd crashes. You know, when you crash at speed most often, you can kind of use the throttle to try and power out of it, or the clutch your way out of it. But I was just going slow, and it was one of those really sudden things where the front wheel went out from under me and I was on the ground before I knew it. And I wasn't being propelled forward at all, just went straight down into the shoulder. 9 times out of 10, you're gonna roll out of a crash. But that one was just, the shoulder took all of it. Anyway, it's 2 weeks later. Hey, look at me, I'm back on a motorcycle. It's better, but it's not better. So I am getting treatment for it from the chiropractor. He's a miracle worker. It was feeling better. I worked on an engine, kind of set it back a little bit. So today it feels like there's some discomfort with my regular riding position, but it doesn't feel like it's doing any harm, if you know what I mean. Like, maybe it's irritated a little bit, but I'm not damaging it further. So at some point you have to take care of both your physical and your mental health, and my mental health seriously needed a ride, so it's really great to be back. If I'm able to do this now, assuming I take care of it, I think a couple more weeks I'll be able to hit the harder trails again, and that'll be so much fun. You might see some familiar roads on today's ride. I'm just going on familiar roads, as I mentioned, staying close to home. And there were a couple things I was thinking about. Man, have I had time to think about things over the last couple weeks, not being able to ride. And one of those things was I was thinking about what has helped me improve motorcycling skills. And one of those things was growing up riding in the dirt. I was thinking about what a wonderful childhood I had, being able to ride dirt bikes all day, every day, just by leaving my front door. We had miles and miles of trails and open areas and hill climbs. So this was back in the 70s on it was at one time strip mine land that had been reclaimed and grown back over, so it was forested. And it was just a big playground. Nobody knew or cared if you were riding there. And so for my childhood, that's where I spent most every waking hour of the day in the summer, unless I was fishing in the pond that was right near our house. That was another thing I loved to do. And that's a benefit of growing up in the country. So, I mean, that helped my riding, but there were a number of years there where in the 90s and the 2000s where I didn't ride a motorcycle as much as I was mountain biking. And I realize now how much, even though being an older rider who'd ridden in dirt a lot, just how much the mountain biking helped my riding abilities. And it was a couple things. It was, believe it or not, it was throttle control. No, you don't have a throttle on a mountain bike, but when you're riding a bicycle up wet trails and there are slick rocks and roots, you can't just hammer on those pedals or you're going to spin out and you lose 100% momentum. You are not going anywhere. Your ride up that hill is done, and you have to figure out a different plan. So you have to be super finesse on the bicycle to get over those obstacles and those kind of situations. And I think that taught me a lot about throttle control on the motorcycle. When you first start to ride and you discover that throttle, there are a whole lot of places where just gassing it will get you out of trouble. And that serves you well for quite a while. But then if you look at, with this big popularity of hard enduro, you look at people like Graham Jarvis, all of these guys that are using a trials background, that are really using finesse to get over obstacles, it shows you just how important that clutch and throttle control is. And I do liken it to when you are the power source on the bicycle and you're having to get over things and you're having to maintain traction. There's no more direct connection than your feet to those pedals, to that rear wheel. And that's the kind of connection you want to have on the motorcycle, with your throttle hand to the engine, to the rear wheel. So that was a big thing. But I also think that the having to ride with clipped-in pedals on the bicycle, well, you don't have to, but if you want to really get the power to the ground, that's what you do. So if you're not familiar, you clip your feet into the pedals and you get them clipped into them, and they're firmly attached. You are attached to the pedals. Your feet don't come off unless you pivot your heel in and out. So by pivoting it in, you click into the pedal and you're locked into the pedal, and then by clicking your heel out, you unlock from the pedal. So you could start an hour-long ride, and if you don't stop, your feet are attached to the pedals every single step of the way. And on a dirt bike, I was taught, when you go around a turn, you put your foot out and you wait, use it for weight and stability and all that stuff. On the mountain bike, you are just clipped in. And so the clipped in helps you so much with power, but you're also clipped in when you're going over the nasty stuff and you're bombing down hills and you're doing all of that. It does help you stay attached to the bike, but you don't leisurely take your foot off generally. So you have to commit to things. Rock gardens, you have to commit. And that's helped me a lot on the dirt bike as far as balance goes. It really does help with balance skills and just that feeling of commitment. I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but being the short rider, I cannot, on taller motorcycles, cannot dab my feet a lot. You really can depend on that for a number of things when you're riding off-road. And I just you have to learn, well, you just keep your feet up. But the mountain biking just helped that little bit more with learning how to do that, committing, confidence, and that kind of balance. So if you've never given it a try, give it a try. I tend to find for myself, in the years where I'm motorcycling a lot, I don't mountain bike very much, and vice versa. Years where I'm committed to mountain biking, I just don't do the motorcycle so much, and I guess it's really a time thing. I know there are people that, if you're content to do one or the other, if you're content to dabble in both of them, you can do it. But I really like concentrating on one thing for a summer. The summers seem to go so fast, the warm weather, and so I am not in mountain biking shape, and with the shoulder the way it is, I'm just hoping by the end of the summer to be able to do a little bit of that. And my approach to that has certainly changed. Years ago, I was doing races, and I wasn't super competitive, but I loved it, and it kept me in shape, so there's that. And then another thing I want to talk about, and I forget how this came up, but oh, I remember now. I had lunch with my friend Brent yesterday, who has ridden his whole life. He's a bit older than I am, and he's ridden all across the country. Been to every state on the motorcycle, I think, except Alaska and Hawaii. Really loves his Suzuki V-Strom 650 for that kind of riding. But he's had other bikes and has other bikes. But we were talking about the merits of riding alone versus riding with a group. And he and I both love to ride alone. And there are benefits to both. I really do enjoy both. But I was thinking about what are the scenarios where I like to ride alone versus with a group. And it was kind of sparked by a blog post that he did talking about, I'm going to note right now that the more I ride, the less I forget about the shoulder not being 100%. And that's a great thing. I've already fulfilled the purpose of today's ride. I can exhale again. Feels good. But he wrote this blog post about traveling alone and why he likes to travel alone. And I agree. On long trips, multi-day trips, I love to travel on the motorcycle by myself. And that might seem odd, might seem more secure traveling with others, but it both takes me out of my comfort zone and it is my comfort zone. When I'm traveling by myself, I find that strangers come up and approach me and want to talk about the bike, and I'm real quick to start conversations with other people. When if I'm traveling with a group of guys or other travelers, we probably aren't as well, we definitely aren't as ready to do that. You stay insulated in your own group, whether it's a thoughtful thing, a conscious thing or not. That stranger that just wants to know about your motorcycle, he may come up to you, but he may see you're talking to other people. They may not take the time to do it. And as for me, I always call it the road buzz, that buzz that you get. Aha, loving the turns, shoulder feels goodish enough-ish. That one's for you, Jeff. It's goodish enough-ish. But I get the road buzz, and that just means that you're kind of tired from the road, your head's buzzing a little bit, you stop to get gas or to eat or whatever, and I get just a little bit, my guard goes down a little bit, I get just a little bit loopy. I'll start conversations with anybody about anything, and it's really just a super enjoyable thing, and I love that. I do like traveling with others, but I have to get into a different mindset. So for the longer trips, when I'm just out discovering, that's where I like to ride solo. And another situation where I like to ride solo is, and I haven't done this enough this year, but typically it's an end of the day, after work kind of thing, and I just go out chasing the sunset. I literally do that. We know if we're chasing the sun, we're going to be heading east in the evening. Okay, waving at other bikers. That's a little odd on the shoulder. We know we're going to be heading west, but it's amazing the difference in the arc of the sun from early spring through fall. And so what I do is I chase the sun, and I just take a road that seems interesting, and then when the sun has set, I realize, oh, it's time to turn around and head home. And I don't necessarily know where I am, so I'm completely free of cares or worries. I am not checking with anybody else about where they have to be or when, and I can just totally do my own thing. And so the couple of situations where I really enjoy riding with other people is, well, one is for the social aspects of it. When it comes to riding by myself, it's all about the riding, the saddle time. I just ride, and I just don't stop a whole lot. That's not my thing. It's not, I don't go out and poke around usually. I mean, not to say I'm going fast, but I like to keep the wheels turning, let me put it that way. If I have 3 hours to ride, I'm gonna ride for 2 minutes and 50 seconds, or 2 hours and 50 minutes of it, and stop for 10 minutes of it. If I'm riding with others for 3 hours, we're gonna go 25-30 minutes, we're gonna stop for 20 minutes, we're gonna talk, we're gonna check our phones, we're gonna do that stuff, we're gonna talk about our motorcycles, and that's cool, and I enjoy it, but it's a different mindset. So knowing those mindsets, that's just how I approach each of them, and I enjoy each of them. So that social aspect, these YouTube videos, I love. Hey, that's a big old snapper. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
So while I absolutely love YouTube, and it blows me away being able to have conversations with people all over the world, there is a different kind of conversation you have when you're hanging out with your buddies and you've stopped somewhere and you're talking about the bikes or trying to find that new restaurant to eat at, and that's just so much fun. As a kid, I mentioned, I think I had the ability to ride so many places just outside my door. And I also had neighbors that rode, so it just made us all stronger as a community. Our community loved riding on the trails on our motorcycles. So yeah, again, great place to grow up. So it's kind of extended now with friends when we go riding like that. And another benefit to it is riding with others is you're always either learning from somebody else or helping somebody else learn from you, whether it's a conscious decision or not. We all have tip overs on the trails, and we all get stuck in the mud, and it's cool to learn from each other. And also it's smart, you know. When I had that crash a couple weeks ago, there were a couple other guys there riding around the trail, that motocross park, and so I knew they were there. I could hear them. I knew they were coming around. If I needed any help, they would have been there. I didn't need any help, luckily, but I definitely, if I'm all alone in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to ride very conservatively. If I know other people are around, not saying I'm going to hang it out, but that is a comfort to know in case anything goes wrong. It's hard to imagine right now, as beautiful a day as this is, that it's going to be thunderstorming in an hour or two, but I'm sure it will be. Oh, and I really want to stop for ice cream, but I have to cut back on that. During COVID-19, the first couple of months, I ate nothing but super healthy. Got myself in good shape. I think exercising I was doing is really helped with the rehab and the health of my shoulder. I think that it was stronger than it would have been otherwise. But here in the last couple weeks, things have eased a bit, and people are branching out more. And I've realized, okay, maybe I'm taking the takeout food a little bit too much, and the rediscovered desserts and all that stuff. Soda or Coke or pop, depending on where you're from. All that stuff. So it's time to just scale back, get back into in it to win it mentality. Well, I think I'm going to turn around, head back home. I've learned everything from this ride that I needed to, as far as The shoulder works. It's getting better. It's not there yet, but just keep needing to be conservative with it and keep getting the treatment and keep making more riding videos. I've said this a few times, but I do have other video in the can to edit, but man, I just love getting out and riding and talking about it. Alrighty, everybody. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do give it a like if you have, and please consider subscribing if you like what you see. There are plenty more videos on the channel, and I will be back hoping to hit the trails again real soon. Alright, take care. See you in the next video, and please, let's all ride safe.